Today is all about the 12-day silent Vipassana retreat that I did over the summer. We get into the good, the bad, and the weird. I figured today we get into a little bit of that silent meditation retreat that I did over the summer. For anybody who's not familiar, it's a Vipassana retreat, and for those not familiar with that, it's just awareness. It's like body scans. Like there's many different types of meditation out there. Vipassanas. It's a Buddhist thing. It's where you just scan your body from head to toe over and over and over again. And for hours on a little stool. I should actually grab my. I use my meditation pillow over here. I have one of those ab rollers, so I use it for my knee. I haven't used it for meditation in a long fucking time, but a lot of people ask me like, "Oh, how was that being quiet for 12 days?" I'm like, well, that wasn't the hard part. Like, I didn't know anybody else there. I won't get into detail about the organization. I do want to promote them because it's free. That's the odd part. It's free. It's funded by donors. So when you leave, you can choose to make a donation or not. Some people do, some people don't. Now, along with that, though, with anything else in life that you do where it's free or there's not like really a barrier of entry to get into, you do get some characters there. I'm pretty sure a couple of those guys were homeless, which was totally fine with me. They didn't bother me any, but like you kind of like when something's free, it's a silent retreat. It's 12 days. There's the first day is orientation. The last day is kind of discussing everything. The association that I went through, it's a nonprofit. They're in every state. They don't all have temples or monasteries. This one in particular was renting one out or using another space. There happens to be a Buddhist monastery right outside Ann Arbor, Michigan, of all places. But
you mentioned that you're doing a full body scan from head to toe. Can you reiterate for those that it is? Is it a machine? Is it yourself? Are you scanning yourself? Are they scanning you? Like what is that process like of really scanning your body?
It's all in your head. So I've got a couple of apps that I use for meditation. And again, there's many different types of meditation. I think they're all very helpful. I've done several different forms of it. I think they all have their use in their own way. This particular one is just kind of getting in touch with the breath and everything else. So for your first, 72 hours, you sit on your little mat in the meditation hall. So just to paint a picture of what it was like there, it's kind of like a community center. It's like a little church, basically. You show up the first day, there's orientation. You can talk to people the first day. I did have a roommate because you stay on site. You live and whatever there. Not all of them do that. Most meditation centers put on by this association, you don't have to have a roommate. But this particular one I did, and I don't give a shit. I've had roommates before. I don't care. I didn't know the guy. And we only had a few minutes the first day to talk. Real nice guy. But anyway, I'll get to that in a little bit later about some of the things that went wrong. So you can go to something like this and not know shit about meditation. It's kind of like a boot camp for meditation. So you go in there, you do your little orientation, they give you your room. The first night they go into what's called noble silence, which is just don't fucking talk. They just want to call it noble silence because it sounds cool. And then you go into the meditation hall and you're all kind of spaced out in there on your little mats. Now, everything's done by gong. Meaning they ring a little gong, and I think you had a similar experience with your last thing you did here, where they have to have something. So why not have a gong? There's no reason to have an air horn, like might as well have something.
That'd be so loud, annoying.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially with nobody speaking. And when I say nobody can talk, you can talk to the instructors, and you can talk to they have an administrator there. They have somebody who runs the course. Then they have the meditation teacher. You can speak to them. You can't shout at them from across the fucking room. You still have to go up and try to whisper to them, but you could talk to them. So it's not like you're like stuck in silence. You start meditation. For the first couple of days, it's just paying attention to the air coming in and out of the end of your nose. And before I go too much into the technique, and that's really all there is to it, before I get too deep into that, there was a guy who was sick the first day we get there. He's like in the fucking line for food because they do serve you food and everything. It's all inclusive. They serve you everything. But it's like going to Mexico and getting everything except this is.
But with no drinks though.
No, well, that's the other component of this. It was a fast for me because there was no caffeine, no alcohol. Like nothing mind altering. The food was very low in protein. It was a vegetarian, which was very good food. Don't get me wrong, but I like to eat a lot of steak and stuff, So for me, it was good, not only just from the meditation part. You do turn in your phone on the first day. There's an emergency number there if somebody needs to get a hold of you. But it's a long fucking time. Like it's one thing to give your phone up for an afternoon, to go on a hike or do something with family. It's another thing to turn it in for 12 days. So that was a
Yeah.
little, it felt weird at the beginning. Like, shit, what am I going to do? But of course, like I told all you guys before I went in, I'm sure everything will be fine, unless there's like some huge emergency. And I was right. When I came out, I looked at my phone. There was about a third of the messages I expected because
Yeah.
everybody just handles shit. So
The weird part though is I'm so used to getting like a 3 to 6 minute voice memo from you at least once a day. So for 10 days of no Justin Lee Payton sending me a message, I'm like, is he okay?
so the first day there was a guy. He was, and again, none of us knew each other, and I blame this kind of on the staff, on the administrator, the guy who was in charge of the course. The guy comes in, and like we're standing in line for food, and the guy's just sneezing. And I'm thinking like, oh gosh,
Oh.
like this is a new environment. When you travel, when you're like in an
Mhm.
airplane or whatever, when you're in close proximity with other people, somebody's sick. I'm like, I don't want to be sick for this entire thing. So I fortunately did not get sick, but a lot of people did. And then we're in the meditation hall later, and even though they have us spaced out, the mats are far enough apart but these guys, because they took it so seriously, and some of them were trying too hard, I think, with meditation, they were sitting on their mats, and they would just, I think that they thought you couldn't move, and you can move. Like you're supposed to not shift around and do things. You're supposed to stay still. And for
Mhm.
anybody who's ever, as an adult, tried to sit cross-legged for a long time, that shit hurts after about 5 minutes. It's really painful. Like it was surprising to me how painful it was. Like fucking with your knees all crammed up and everything. But so the
Oh
problem
yeah.
is a lot of these guys took it too seriously, and the ones that were sneezing and sick, they're just like two people over, and they're just like, achoo, they're just sneezing, and you can almost see like the cloud of
Oh,
germs that's spread. And it's like, and I
no.
blame the administrator for that. He could have just been like, hey, cover your fucking mouth. It's not that strict. So point being, everybody got sick except for me. And I attribute that to, like, I was very intentional about, like, I got in line for food first. I didn't let anybody else touch anything. Was like always putting hand sanitizer on and staying away from people, which was easy because we couldn't talk anyway. But I was very careful. I'm like, I do not want to be sick. A lot of other people got sick. So one of the downsides, one of the negative components of this had nothing to do with the teachings of the course or anything. It's just germs flew around. Everybody got sick. And there's 16 of us, and I think at least 12 got pretty sick. I wouldn't be surprised if it was some form of COVID, because it was beyond a head cold. But anyway, that was one of the things that annoyed me about it. But anyway, you roll into the first couple of days, you're focusing on the breath in and out of your nose. And then the instructor has you progress, and then you start moving to where you're okay. Now you're focusing on, you're scanning yourself internally, like you're thinking about it, like from
Mm.
the top of my head all the way down, and you're doing it very slowly. You're going out each part of the body, like your shoulder and so it's pretty painstaking. It's boring. It's supposed to be boring because you're not supposed to be thinking about anything else, and that's the hardest part, of course, because our minds
Yeah.
wander, just in general. So that was the hardest part about that. And then towards the end, I don't want to say it gets any easier, but you just kind of get used to doing it. But aside from the actual meditation, the technique, and other things, again, like I said, I was a little familiar with before going in. The benefits that I got out of it were, we turned our phone in on day one. It's such a compulsion, these cell phones these days. Just just standing in line anyway. Let's say you're at the grocery store or you're pumping gas, or anytime during your day where you have a minute, or like on the toilet, whatever. It's just, you just reach for the damn thing because we're so used to doing it. And it's not always bad. Sometimes, whatever, we have to catch up on things. But
Mhm.
I noticed, like, for the first few days of not having it, I would, like, my hand would go into my left pocket, where it's where I keep it. Or in the evenings, if I'm in my little bed and I get a little bored or whatever, like usually I'll pop my AirPods in and I'll listen to a podcast or something, and I'm like reaching for the nightstand and it's not there. And I wasn't even upset that it wasn't there. It was more of man, this is like a compulsive behavior. So not only do I
Yeah.
think that these things are bad habits, but I think the human brain, like, we're just reaching for something, like idiots, like
Yeah.
caveman.
So similar to like when I was at my retreat for the 6 days there, it wasn't a mandatory handing your cell phone, but he really encouraged us to not use our cell phones there. And one of the reasons why is because the one that we were at was more like an intimacy retreat, learning how to become intimate with yourself, with other people, not in a sexual way, but just in an intimate way. And usually what happens is when we're craving intimacy, when we're lonely, when we're sad, when we need attention, we go to our phones to either get a message from someone, send someone a message, look on Instagram. We're looking for connection. And so the phone is like a form of connecting, but it's such a disconnect because you're not actually connecting with people. So I see that entirely. And speaking about reaching into your pockets there's been times where I'd be walking and I'll legitimately feel my phone vibrate in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, I got a message. And then either A, I grab my phone out and there's no message, or B, my phone's not even in my pocket. And my
Yeah.
body's just, but I think that's actually what's happening is your body is like, you're bored, you need attention, you need connection. I'm going to make it seem, I'm going to do the pattern that you're used to and make it seem like you got a message. And I feel it vibrate and there's no phone in my pocket.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
it is
weird like that.
remarkable. Isn't it? It's so
Yeah.
weird. It's remarkable. So yeah, I think not only are these things bad habits, and look, we all use them all the time. We use them for business, but whatever. We use our fucking phones. I'm not anti-phone, but I think it literally is a compulsion, like you're saying. I think you
Yeah.
like have phantom vibrations in your pocket. You're like, oh, it's not even there. But that
100%.
was nice. I was a little concerned going in. Again, not about the silence. I didn't know any of these guys anyway. I didn't really. I mean, I'm sociable, but I'm like, I don't care if I talk to these guys or not. I'm never going to see them again. And that part wasn't thing because that's what people bring up. Like, oh my god, you were silent. I'm like, so fucking what? It
Yeah.
was not having the phone was a little nerve wracking in the beginning, but then after a couple of days, I'm like, not only did I not miss it, but here's the other thing with these retreats: you can't write anything down, you can't journal, you can't exercise. So just to get a little bit more into the dynamics, the logistics of it. Listen to me, I'm all caffeinated now. I had my gym weed and my manatee cup, but so a little bit more the process of the actual administration of this thing. There's no art on the walls. They cover all the art up, in so much as there's art in a monastery. But there's shit to look at. There's little Buddhas everywhere and everything else. So that all
Kevin
gets
knows.
covered up. They take away all the distractions. They let you go walk outside. To anybody who's driving by, it probably looks like an insane asylum because you see a bunch of people out walking around in this little field, and we couldn't talk to each other, or we're not supposed to really look at each other. So we're all just kind of like those little electric robots, those little computer robots or whatever. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
vacuum robots. We probably all look like crazy people. So we're very limited. They don't want you to exercise because they want you to sit with your thoughts, the good and the bad. They don't want
Mhm.
any other distractions. So of course, as we know, like if we get stressed out or anxious, some of us exercise. I mean, that's what we should do. We don't always. Some of us drink. Some of us do both, and or we get on our phones. We distract ourselves. We get on our phones
Yeah.
or we watch TV. So there's no TVs, no radio, no music. You couldn't write anything down. So about 2-3 days in, I'm not a big journaler, although I should be. I understand the whatever behind it. I know you do it a lot, and
Mhm.
I really want to start. I'm just just lazy. I procrastinate, but I understand the whatever behind it, like the benefits of it. And I don't do that, but I started a few days in having really intense new ideas, things I wanted to write down. And I'm talking about everything from what I wanted to order on Amazon when I got out of that place, and all the way to like business ideas to just life ideas and things. And I'm like, shit, it started to drive me nuts because I had a lot of clarity of, day 4, day 5, your brain's not supposed to wander while you're meditating. Look, well, now all I can do is think about this to-do list I've got in my head. So I can say this now because it's been a few months, but because it's a facility, like in the middle of the night, I got up and I broke into one of the little supply closets. They have closets in the hallway, and because of my prior work, I've picked locks and everything else. So I broke into this thing and I got a pen and paper and I would like hide in my room because my roommate's in there also. And he wasn't going to snitch me out, I don't think. But again, I didn't want to make him uncomfortable. So at night, I'm like writing like all these things down. And I found that actually was like really cathartic because I got it out of my head and then I wasn't thinking about it all the
Mhm.
next day. I'm talking about dumb shit like, oh, I need to order this supplement or whatever. So where it was nice not to have the phone and not have any responsibility. And there was ideas I wanted to implement in business or whatever that I couldn't have if I wanted to, because you don't have your phone, you can't do
Yeah.
anything. But it was nice to be able to get it out on paper, because on the other side of that, if you can't get your thoughts out, then you just worry that you're not going to remember. And then your brain starts turning on that. So that was good. I'm glad I did that. I don't regret breaking the rules a little bit because I think it was beneficial to me.
Mhm.
So anyway, you roll through all these days. The food's pretty good. You eat once a day. They do
Just
let you
once a day.
walk.
That's it.
Yeah, and I don't know what the reasoning behind that was. Although, so the staff is also volunteer. The staff that they
Okay.
have there that serve are usually prior students that have been through it once. And how somebody can go through this thing more than once, I'm not really sure. Not because it's not beneficial. I would love to do another silent retreat somewhere, another meditation retreat. It's just not the same one because it's the same
Yeah.
material. So I feel like I would get bored. So anyway, because it's all volunteer, I feel like they didn't want to put a huge weight on the staff, the helpers or whatever they call them. So we ate once a day, which is fine. You kind of get, your body gets used to it. And we're sedentary the whole time. I mean, just either
Yeah.
sitting on the little pillow, which I've got over here. I should grab it. Or
Do
you
you
can go
do
walk.
you bring do you bring your own pillow, or do they provide pillows?
Oh, I brought my own. They have their own pillows, but of course I'm
Okay,
fancy.
good.
So I went on Amazon and ordered the most expensive meditation pillow. And I'm really glad I did because it was, like I said, it was difficult to sit cross-legged for any length of time. So I don't regret that purchase at all. I'll
Yeah,
probably
I
never
did.
use it again. Yeah.
I think the most I've sat still was it was like 3.5 hours, but it was on no pillow. It was just on carpet. It was in
Oh
a
God.
Muslim, not a Muslim, a Sikh mosque during
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
East Indian wedding. So you just like it's literally all in this big room with carpet. You just sit on the carpet cross-legged, and yeah, after like 30 minutes, you're like, oh, my
Dude.
back. And if you're smart, the smart people, what they do is because you do all the food first, and then you go to the temple upstairs. So you got to eat really quick and run upstairs. So you get a spot against the wall. You got to get a wall
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
think about that. I could not believe my knees, everything, because when you're sitting, like you just mentioned, and you're on the ground, whether you have a pillow or not, there are a lot of muscles and shit involved in keeping you up that I didn't remember because you're a little kid, you don't remember that shit. I felt like my knees were going to explode at one point, and just a
From
little bit on
sitting.
the schedule. Yeah, from sitting, and so a little bit on the schedule, just so people don't think we were in there all day. So they bang the first gong at 4:30 in the morning, which sounds brutal, but there's nothing else going on. There were certain times of day where you could shower, and certain times where you weren't supposed to, and that'll bring me back to the crew I was with here in a bit because there's some issues, there's some hygiene issues I noticed with some of the people, but that was to be expected. They bang the first gong at 4:30. They serve breakfast at 6, and then you go meditate. You can do it for on your own in your room, which basically means you just go back to sleep because it's almost impossible to lay on your bed and not move and not fall asleep, especially there when there's nothing going on. And
Mhm.
then you go into the hall. There's certain times a day you had to be in the hall for group meditations, and they would have instruction, or they would the guy who started the whole thing, the whole nonprofit, the organization, he passed away like 10 years ago, but they have all of his recordings, so they would play him on the TV. Excellent instructor. I mean, it was really good stuff. But point is, you don't sit from 4 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night on that pillow. It's maybe 90 minutes tops between breaks, which is doesn't sound like much, but it is. It shit fucking hurts. And then it alternates between group meditation and meditating on your own. But again, there's nothing to do. You're sedentary. There's no stimulus. There's nothing to do except eat and just wander around. They had this little path in the yard. I walked around that in circles. I ended up getting a lot of steps in just because there was nothing else to do. But on the note of just being in a communal setting like that, it's funny that we had brand new showers in that place, and they tell you like, hey, bring enough clothes for 12 days. I happen to have enough clothes for 12 days because I travel a lot and I have all these all I do is wear workout clothes now. So I have like 10 of these things. So I actually had enough clothes to carry me through. Most adults, most adults should have enough clothes for at least a week. You should be able to make it 7 days, right? So
Yeah, I
fucking
mean, my girlfriend's got at least 2 months worth. At least 2 months.
yeah. I mean, you can plan in Western civilization. You can plan on having access to a washer, dryer, or even in the past, if I've been on a long trip, I'm sure you have too. If you run out of clothes, you just go buy another T-shirt. It's not a big deal. Yeah,
I've washed underwear in the sink and then hung them on the bumper of my motorhome.
well,
So like,
well,
I make it work.
that kind of goes to the motorhome. Well, to your point there. So we're fucking 2 days in, and these guys that have shown, because it's all men there at this particular one. These guys that showed up driving like Lexus, like whatever, like decent cars. Now, just because you have a nice car doesn't mean you have money. We all know that some people buy shit they can't afford, but nobody was driving crap. So that's what I based it on. And that was another problem I had when people came in with my mind wandering because of my jobs I've had. I had a job where that's what I did all day is I followed people around and tried to figure their patterns out. So it was very hard for me to break out of that, not just paying attention to what other people are doing all the time. I'm like, oh, I see that guy's license plate is from this place. I wonder, Now, that said, it's curiosity is a human thing. Like anybody would have been doing that because you can't, yeah, creeping on people. Anybody would have done that. I think mine's just always turned up a little bit more because of my previous work. But so like day 3, there's people washing their clothes in the sink. I'm like, you don't have like 4 shirts? Like what the fuck is wrong with you? So I thought that was a little strange. Same with the showers. Like when I got there, the guy I met out front, and if he ever watches this, he's a really nice guy. But Scott is his name. I wish I knew his last name. I'd call him out. But
Not
no, God, no. That's a whole other show. That's a whole other fucking podcast in itself. Oh my God. Yeah, we'll have to get into that. We'll do a show on crypto, and that'll be the main thing. But this guy the first day,
Thunder Forge.
oh yeah, that's right, Forge Thunder Chicken, whatever the fuck, dragons and bullshit. Oh God. But the first day, I'm talking to this guy out front. And he's like, well, you don't really sweat that much or anything here because we're sedentary. And I'm like, that makes sense. It's summertime in Michigan, but still, we're not doing anything. We can't exercise.
Mhm.
And he's like, yeah, you really don't need to shower for a few days. And I'm like, well, I mean, maybe you don't. But the thing is,
Should.
this facility has really nice showers, and we have nothing to do all day. I mean, you have to be in the meditation hall for certain periods, but then there's hours in between where you're supposed to be meditating, but nobody's going to stop you from going to the bathroom. So I'm like, why wouldn't you just shower just to be clean? So anyway, so part of the things I didn't like about the communal aspect of it, and again, this was all free, so I shouldn't complain about that, was that you're going to get what you're going to get. You're going to get the guys that have like one t-shirt, that don't shower, that sneeze on the food, so the cons of it were just having to be in close proximity to strangers that you just don't really know much about. That said, strangers are no strangers. I know plenty of people now that are filthy that are friends of mine. So
Yeah.
that's no knock on anybody who showed up to that thing, because there's assholes everywhere. But yeah, before I ramble on here, do you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, like the whole concept, like, well, you don't really sweat, so you don't really need to shower. I'm like, you don't really need to, but you should. Like, there's a big difference between needing and you should do something, or you know, yeah, you definitely
Yeah.
need. Yeah, I think it's a need. And like you said, it's not like I've had days where, like if you're sick, like if you're really sick, you're like bedridden, you're just like, you get up just to pee, grab water, fall back to bed or something like that. Like, yeah, you're not going to go shower. But like, if you have really nothing to do, you're just walking around, like, why not? Especially you said they're
Yeah.
nice facilities, they're new. Like, who doesn't like a nice hot shower? Like, I woke up at 6 this morning and my girlfriend was not feeling good, so I let her sleep. So I didn't have time to shower this morning yet. And I mean, for me, it's kind of funny. I used to say that there's 2 types of people in the world. There's people that shower before work, and there's people that shower after work. And it's
Yeah.
really dependent on the job. Ooh, balloons.
So fucked
I
up.
might get a thumb. Let's do it. There's a thumb one working
I
right
don't
now.
know. I don't understand. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there we
I
go.
don't whose idea was that anyway? And for anybody who's listening to this and not watching, we just made a few gestures, and it's doing that thing that Zoom and Google Meet does now, or do now, with the stupid, you put a thumbs up or like whatever. I'm like, whose idea was that? I mean, seriously, how cheesy. Is there a way to disable that? This is a recording
Yeah.
platform, but anyway,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
don't know. I
yeah,
wonder if that's going to show up live or not. But yeah, so basically it was
no,
based on, the type of job you had. If you were like worked in an office, you usually shower
yeah,
before work. And most of my life, my jobs have been like, there's 0 point to shower first thing. Unless, well, actually, no, there's one time. If you've been up all night drinking and you want to wash the smell of booze off you before
right,
work, then you shower
yeah,
before. But yeah, mostly like, so for me, like trying to get in the habit of showering in the morning is tough. And a lot of times too, because I wake up in the morning, read, I do write my journal down, and then I'll have my coffee, and then I'll work out. So there's no point to shower before that. But
yeah,
yeah, it's
no, for
strange how
sure.
some, and like you said, like who shows up to a 10-day retreat, 10 or 12-day with 2 pairs of underwear? Who does that?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Who
mean, at
does
least go
that?
buy a pack of them, buy a cheap pack that you're going to throw away when you leave there. And
Something.
showering just, it makes you feel better. Like,
Yeah.
even if you don't need to, you sleep better. I mean, whatever. I mean, look, if some people, if they don't get it, they don't get it. It's not, it's not worth trying
Yeah.
to do certain people, but
Showering's a privilege for sure, and it's a
yeah.
privilege that a lot of people, they don't see as a privilege. They just see it as
Yeah.
like a. I mean, like, my stepson, like trying to get him to shower sometimes. Like, I don't want to. It's like, do you know how fortunate you are to be able to have hot running water just to like
Yeah.
clean yourself every day? But obviously he's young, so he doesn't know that. But a lot of grown ups don't even know that either. They're just like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't really feel like showering. I'm like, there's a very small percentage of the population that have that access to shower daily. Use
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and it's funny. This just came up the other day. I was listening to Jimmy Carr. He's a comedian in the UK, and he was
Yeah.
saying, he was right. I think that hot showers in the home have been within the last 50 or 60 years, because I know that my grandparents, when they were like, the thing was in the States anyway, is that they have a big family. You fill up the bathtub, and then the little one gets in first. Then everybody shares the same fucking bath water, and they heat it up on the stove. And this was only 60, 70 years ago. So it hasn't been that
Yeah.
long that we've had this privilege. So yeah, it's just bizarre to me that people wouldn't want to be clean or just feel better. So that part was a little, so the hygiene, the
Mm.
germs, and look, when you get a bunch of people together, whether they know each other or not, and you put them in a small setting, of course there's going to be issues. I mean, you can have problems with somebody you lived with for fucking 30 years. That's just the way it's going
Yeah.
to be. So the negative, the downsides to it, and again, I was asking for that because it's free, were the communal part of it. Of
Mm.
course, what was I expecting to be there on my own? Now I could go pay for one of these next year in Colorado or somewhere. I just throw that out there. Probably California too. Sounds like the kind of place that would do this,
Yeah.
and it would probably cost me $7,000 for what I got. I got food, I got lodging, I got instruction. I had the teacher was very professional. He was from India. He came over for it, so the amount of value I got for free was amazing. So I don't want to turn this into there was just a bunch of problems, but I do feel like
Yeah.
people should know that if you go to one of these and it's free, you're going to run into that. So a lot of people, when they do these, they have like a breakthrough or something like that. I think I mentioned Ori Goldstein before. He's the other guy that we produce his podcast as well. He's a trauma therapist, hypnotherapist, and he does all these things. He's done all like the long 90-day meditation retreats in India. He's done all the ceremonies. He did one of those combo things like you did. Yeah, yeah,
Actually,
which is, yeah,
I found out I can't do it again. Actually, so remember I showed you a picture of my face.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I'm actually allergic to it. So that, I had a physician tell me that if I do it again, I can go into anaphylactic shock.
No, well,
Yeah.
at least you,
So
yeah, at least you
yeah,
found out. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's probably a good. I mean,
it
you
was
did it
it was an
once. Yeah,
experience. It was an experience. I mean, me and my girlfriend both now have matching, scar tattoos on our
scars.
neck, and it's kind of cute in that aspect. But yeah, for those who maybe we can put the picture in the clip here, some of my face. But yeah, my
Yeah,
face is just like I was swollen. It was
yeah,
not good.
yeah. And to that note, I think that episode comes out next. This one will be after that one, but we'll have to definitely,
Mm,
or maybe I can rearrange them. Why I don't see why we couldn't, but
yeah.
yeah, that's very interesting. But yeah, Ori does that stuff, and he's like a pioneer for all these different things. And when I say pioneer, I mean these things have been around for thousands of years, meditation, all these cleanses, and everything else. But he did it all, and because we produce his podcast, and I'm an on-air producer for his show. He said, well, why don't you do one of these retreats? I'm like, well, I'm interested in that. So I ended up doing it because of him. But when he did
Mm,
his, same association, same organization, just a different location, he had a breakthrough. And a lot of people do. 4, 5, 6, 7 days in, you from the body scanning, which is interesting in itself, just from scanning, like thinking about, all right, top of my head, forehead, and you do the front, the back, like you go all the way down to
yeah.
your fingers and back up again. You do that over and over and over again. Well, a few days in, or I think maybe towards the end, but he started having like some serious breakthroughs, like a lot of trauma release from when he was a child. I think I told you he had this um, and we'll have him on to tell the story better. But real quick, he had this. He was sitting on his meditation mat in the hall with everybody else. He started having a feeling like he was drowning, like he couldn't breathe. His esophagus kept closing up or whatever. He couldn't figure it out, and he's a hypnotherapist. He's been doing it for 20 years, so he like tried to like talk himself out of it. He tried to use his own techniques on himself, didn't really work. And then finally, the memory came up of that when he was like 6 months old or something. His mother had one of those people come to the house that helps you drown proof your kids. Like they have an instructor come over and teach kids how to swim in case they fall in the pool. Well, he didn't
Mm,
remember it until then, but that's what it was. They kept throwing him in the pool, and this was an instructor, like a licensed instructor that did this, back in the day. So that's that memory came up that he'd totally forgotten about. So that's how weird it was for
wow.
him. He had that. I didn't have any breakthroughs like that. I did have a lot of just clarity of thought from not having my phone and just being able to sit, not being distracted, and it was also just kind of a something to say that I was able to do. Like, can I not have my phone or not talk for 10 days? What is this going to be like? Because I've had this goddamn thing since I don't know. I got my first cell phone. I'm 44 now. I probably had we had cell phones when I was a teenager, but I had one of these in my pocket, I think when I was like 20, like when
Yeah.
they finally made them small enough you could carry it around. So it's been that long. I'm like, shit. So I got a lot out of it. I was familiar with the meditation. I won't get into the whole technique here because, anybody can go read up on Vipassana or whatever, but the retreat itself was very interesting. But I got the clarity of thought that I got from a meditation aside, but the clarity that I got from not having a phone and not the not speaking thing, I don't know, not exercising, maybe not. But what I would recommend for people, if you can, is find some way to get away from this thing for just a few days, just any devices or whatever. And I know, look, everybody's got families and commitments and everything else, but if you can get away from that thing, just the ideas I had and the just like, oh my God, this is what I need to do. Like, part of the reason we're doing this and the reason we're growing this thing is because, some ideas come out of stuff like that. And it's not feasible for everybody to do it for 10 days, of course.
Yeah.
But man, what a great experience. And it's not as scary as you think it is. And another big lesson I learned, back to your point in the beginning of this, is that you think that the whole world's going to go to shit and collapse around you if you're not in the know and you're not up on things or answering questions. If you have, unless you're surrounded by morons, if you have a good team and you have and this goes not just for work coworkers, but it's for people in your family, people are competent. So it's like you can relinquish control and go do something and trust that
Mhm.
things are going to get done properly. And look, if that doesn't happen and everything goes to shit, then you can just tell everybody I told you so when you came out anyway. Like, I knew I couldn't leave, you dumbasses.
Yeah,
So anyway,
two big things, and I think like for those that like you mentioned, like how you suggested people that should, get away from your phone for a couple of days, but they just don't really know how. I think one of the best things that just came to my mind is like go into nature, go outdoors, go camping for a couple of days. Because
yeah,
if you're trying to be at home and around your normal environment where you have your life, or, works there, and you try and just like put your phone in the drawer for a couple of days, you're gonna get tempted to look at it. You're gonna be tempted to use it again. It's very easy to cave into that. But if you're in the middle of nowhere where there's no cell service and you're camping, you got a tent set up with your family or a trailer and you have a campfire going, even if you go and grab your phone, you can't use it. There's no cell service. So
yeah.
that's a really good way to do it because it 99% of the population, maybe a little bit less than that, they're going to cave. You're going to cave if you try and do 2 days without a phone. Like you had to physically give your phone to someone else because I guarantee
Yeah.
if you had it in your room, you'd use it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when I was trying to make notes and everything, like
Yeah,
when I was worried about losing my thoughts, I would have opened it up just to make a note, just to make an Apple note to myself. And of
and
course, once you do
then
that,
you're
then you're in there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right.
There's ways to do it, and the thing is, it's not like you surprise everybody. You can block off, and I intend to do this every year. Not the same organization, but I intend to pick a week. Maybe it doesn't have to be. I got what I needed probably after day 5 or 6. I
Yeah.
didn't need to be there because it did get a little like, get me out of here towards the end
I've
there.
ac- I've
Yeah.
actually seen for children, you probably get an adult one. They have like timed lock boxes you can buy.
Hmm.
So for
Yeah.
for cell phone free nights or whatever like that, you just set the timer for whatever time it is. You put your phone in the vault, shut it, and it doesn't open up until the timer goes off. So there's
Yeah.
that you can do too. If you live in an area where camping and being out in those cell service is unavoidable. If you're in the state of New York, it's probably hard to get camping. It's probably a 6 hour drive from New York City. I was only in New York City, but I'm
Hmm.
assuming like a lot of people they don't even have a car to go camping, right? So if you live in a
Yeah.
big city, a lot of people take public transit. If you can't even escape the city to do it, what are one of those lock boxes off Amazon, right? It's probably under $100 or something like that. Try it, even if you just do start small, start for 4 hours in the evening or something like that when it's dinner time or family time. Everyone puts their family phones in the box. You play games, you watch a show, you do whatever as a family, but no one's on their phones. So it's a good way to
Yeah.
help detox your system slowly, and then you can start doing longer periods of time.
Yeah, for sure. And I've heard about these boxes a couple of years back, and my initial thought was like, how much of a week, do you have to be? But now, honestly, because I'll tell you, turning this phone into somebody else, not only because you relinquish total control. It's actually comforting. I know it sounds
Mm,
weird, like, oh my God, I put my phone in a lockbox, I set a timer, and I can't get into it. It sounds a little scary, but it takes more pressure off than you think,
yeah.
because not only can you not get to it, but even if I had like really brilliant things I wanted to do or reach out to somebody. I couldn't if I wanted to. And that was like another layer that I didn't realize was going to happen. That was another layer of comfort. I'm like, this is so relaxing. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't do anything about this if I wanted to. So just fucking
That's what I
be
was going to bring
present.
up. That's going to
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
up
It's
the
fucking
release of
great.
control. Because if you just try and not use your phone, you always have the thought, even if the thought comes up like, I want to use it, you know very well physically you could just go grab it. So the only thing that's really stopping you is yourself. And a lot of people that aren't strong enough, don't have that willpower to do it. But if you like, put your phone in that vault or that box, and you're like, I really want my phone. It's like, shit, I can't do it if I
Yeah.
want. So the control's gone. So it helps alleviate you because now the temptation is gone almost completely. And now it's just in your head of getting rid of the habit, but there's no temptation. There might be a temptation like, oh, I want it. But then you're just like, I can't. I physically cannot do it. Where
Yeah.
before, like if you had the temptation, when I was trying to quit vaping and stuff like that, you have the temptation and it's right there. You're like, okay, one more. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's there.
Oh, for sure. And
So
I can't stress enough and there was an actual, I don't want to say switch that flipped, but because you think like, oh, I'll just put my phone down for an afternoon, maybe go for a walk, which is pretty good. Like if you can do that. And that's another thing I'll mention here is like, well, I do now still. I walk and I listen to podcasts. But if I don't listen to podcasts and I listen to music, I get a lot more ideas because like a podcast, you're still like, I'm thinking about this. And the podcast I listen to, like I was just listening to Bill Maher and Jordan Peterson. And of course they're talking about all these like things because one's an atheist and Jordan Peterson's Jordan Peterson, who I like for a lot of things. And some of the stuff he
yeah,
does, I like him about 50-50. Some of the stuff he's like, the other stuff he's brilliant. But I'm like, you can't not, get immersed in that because they're so fucking
yeah,
intellectual. So like your brain's not relaxing at all when you're listening to guys like that, for example.
no,
So I was my walk this morning, I was listening to those two guys. Excellent podcast, but I didn't come back with any new ideas or feel relaxed because I'm like, oh my God, I was thinking about all this shit. So listening to music during walking or leaving your phone behind, which a lot of people don't want to do on their walk because in case they're out walking, they need to get a hold of. So that's a small way to do it. But the point I'm getting at is that I didn't have an actual breakthrough of clarity until it was day 5. It was the morning of day 5. So a lot of people think, oh, I could just put this thing down for a couple of hours. I don't know because I literally was forced to. And then it took that long. So I would recommend to anybody who's interested in doing who can pull off a longer retreat or have their phone away from them for a few days to really push it and try to give it a week or, if feasible, because I was like, I was thinking like, what am I going to learn about myself, or what ideas am I going to have after 4 days that I won't have after 1 day of not having my phone? Like, what the fuck's the difference going to be?
yeah.
And there was a difference. There was a difference because I'm like, oh my God, all these ideas. And that, of course, that's when I broke the law and broke into the closet and took a pen and paper. But yeah, it's really interesting stuff. I can't stress enough just getting away, going on a little retreat. Again, we're coming from a place of privilege here where you and I work remotely and we can afford to do some of these things. But man, just not not having that phone. And some of us, like you're a little bit younger than me, but not by much. But I didn't. I did. You look a lot younger because you haven't had. Well, actually, I was going to say you haven't had the harsh years, but you've had some pretty hard years.
I've had some pretty
But
hard
yeah,
years. Some pretty hard years, yeah.
but but a lot of it, like I remember, like growing up as a kid, we just didn't have cell phones for the longest time, and some of that was because of accessibility, and some of it was just because they weren't around, they weren't invented yet. But it's like the younger people who have never not known having a phone, I think it'd be beneficial for them to get away. But anyway, before I rant on about that, silent retreat was amazing. It was a Vipassana retreat again about meditation. You don't necessarily have to go on a retreat that's a meditation retreat. I mean, Sean, you just did your retreat, completely different, but it's just a way to, I think the general theme here is either you're connecting with yourself and you're reflecting inward like I did, or in the case of your retreat, it was more about connecting with others. And the main theme, that the through line, was to get away from this shit or at least get away
and
from the outside world.
and connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
fuck.
big one. Well, I think that's a good way to leave it off there. End it off
Yeah.
on the whole point of these retreats and what life is about is connecting, and the use of cell phones helps us we think it's for connecting with people because we can connect with a broader spectrum and more people around the world. It's great for business. Like I said, we're not anti-phone, anti-computer. We need it for our line of work, for our lives, but it's fake connection. People, humanity, and our civilization needs is a real connection, and these retreats really help you build that. Like Yours was more for yourself, connecting with yourself, and mine was more connecting with others. And it's just a phenomenal thing to do.
No, 100%. Couldn't have said any better. And on that note, please like and subscribe.
Yeah,
Forget
like,
everything
subscribe.
forget everything about what we just said about not playing with your phone. You can listen to us.
Yeah,
Anyway.
get rid of every other podcast you listen to. Subscribe to us only. We're gonna we'll show you the ropes.
All right. So to be continued. See you guys next time.
Peace.